Hello and welcome to episode 202 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I am Mark, the green tank, and with me, as always, are Kellen, the red tank.
Hello.
And Neelan, the orange tank.
Hello.
It occurs to me now, as I was saying that I think I usually go with Neelan first, then Kellen.
Yeah, I was actually taken a little bit off guard there. Where I was like,
Okay,
wait,
yeah.
hang on, Kellen first?
Interesting. On today's episode, do you want to throw a catchphrase in there?
No, I just remember losing the battle in the first 5 episodes where I demanded that I host every episode. I was outvoted 2-1.
Now I'm trying to wrestle that idea from you and host all the episodes going forward. On today's episode, while we don't look back, we're going to kind of look back, but just to look ahead. So real quick look back, but focusing on looking ahead.
Yeah, it's like driving a car, right? You have to use the rearview mirrors occasionally.
This is our rear view mirror episode. Great, exactly. I love it. So a lot of people who listened to episode 200 loved what I think is one of the highlights of any of our episodes ever, a poem that Kellen read back in episode 36. That was one of the highlights that was brought up by the fans, and justifiably so. So we had a lot of people check out that episode, and we noticed that that episode, recorded way back in October of 2018, was one that we were talking about 10 games apiece that we had not played that we were eager to play. So we decided to look back to that episode to see if we'd play those games and what we thought about games that we hadn't played, if we're still interested in playing them, and the ones that we have gotten to, what we thought about it. So this is sort of like a little retrospective look back to look forward at games that we hadn't played, but maybe have played, and all that makes sense, I'm sure. But before we look back to look ahead, let's talk about the games that we have been playing. Neelan is going to start us off with Warp's Edge from Scott Almes. I'm going to follow up by Carolus Magnus, an older game by Leo Calavini. And finally, Kellen will wrap us up with Unfathomable, a remake
Unfathomable.
That's a contender for a new catchphrase. The remake of BSG. So Neelan, tell us about Warp's Edge.
So Warp's Edge is a solo game by Renegade Games and Scott Almes. Scott Almes is more commonly associated with the Tiny Epic series of games. Warp's Edge is a solo bag building game, and in the fine tradition of Scott Almes, quote-unquote, borrowing themes from video games without licensing them, this is sort of his take on, at least as far as I can tell, his take on FTL. So if you've played that video game, you are effectively a solo ship trying to make your way back to home, fighting enemy ships along the way, getting more and more experience, getting more upgrades, getting better weaponry until you eventually fight the mothership, which is a big, overwhelming boss battle, and once you defeat that, you won the game. It is a roguelike type of game, and that is actually pretty well replicated in Warp's Edge, and the system that I think is quite clever. You effectively have 4 runs that you can take against the game, and in any setup of the game, you choose a mothership, you create a deck of enemy ships, and then you go. You have some starting abilities, a starting ship, and then you're off. On a given turn, what you're doing is drawing 5 tokens from the bag, which represent the actions you can take, either shooting lasers at the enemy ships, evading the enemy ships, or using energy to use your abilities, repair your shields, that sort of thing. So, every turn, you have 4 enemy ships in front of you, and if you don't fire at least one shot against them or evade them with one of your tokens, they will be doing damage back to you. So it's about using all your tokens effectively to distribute damage among the ships, decide which ones are worth hitting, which ones are worth just taking the damage from, in order to eventually completely evade them, in which case they get removed from the array, or destroy them, in which case the same thing happens. So you always have 2 ways to deal with each of these ships, and 2 different rewards depending on how you deal with them. You're trying to work your way through the enemy deck to eventually reach the mothership, which you would have to destroy in a similar fashion. In that case, though, you don't have the option to evade, you just have to use your lasers against it. But the thing that makes this really quite clever is in your first run of the game, you have no chance in hell. Your weapons are just too basic. You'll get about maybe a third of the way through the enemy deck and realize, okay, I've just literally run out of tokens in this bag, because they don't replenish until you complete the warp. What that means, then, you take all the tokens you have in play, put them all back in your bag, take all the enemy ships you destroyed, shuffle them back up, put them back on top of the deck. You're effectively going back in time and rerunning that encounter with upgraded weaponry and knowledge of what the ships are in there are. They come out in a new random order. You have slightly better weaponry, so you can get further along the deck. You go as far as you can, reset, repeat. In the mothership I played against, you have 4 opportunities to do this, in which case, by the end of it, I was finally getting all the way through the enemy deck and had a couple of shots against the mothership and got destroyed. I've said this before, I'm always encouraged by a game that seems very hard in the first play. I've now played this twice on the easiest difficulty and haven't managed to defeat it yet, which is very encouraging to me because it means I'm going to have a lot more opportunities to try get better. I could feel myself getting better even in that second play. And the way that you have to vary your tactics depending on the mothership and depending on the enemy deck feels pretty solid. It's not quite to the level of like an Aeon's End, but it does have a little bit more of that, okay, this is going to work slightly differently this run based on the powers I have at my disposal. This I thought was real solid. You know, it has the trappings of a solo bag builder, which is to say that there is obviously a heavy dose of luck in this, depending on what you draw at any given time, but the game is good about allowing you to mitigate that or utilize that, hold tokens to a subsequent turn, and so on. So I was very pleasantly surprised by this. The theme is right up my alley, and I'm quite eager to play more of it.
How does this stack up with other recent solo games you've played? I know you recently reviewed Ratcatcher, which you weren't a big fan of, and Under Falling Skies. How does this stack up to some of those and other favorite solo games that you've played recently?
I think it's definitely better on first blush than Ratcatcher. You know, it's worth saying that they're trying to do different things. Like Ratcatcher very much is leading into the minis on a map feeling, but not quite getting there. I didn't love that. I like this a lot better because the system is simpler. You can sort of go through it very quickly. The setup and tear down is fairly easy. Like they have these actually quite nice component trays for managing everything, which I thought was lovely. Compared to Under Falling Skies, it didn't hit as hard on my first play of Under Falling Skies. Under Falling Skies just felt like a much more novel system. This feels a little bit more standard. It's not unlike something like a coffee roaster in terms of that sort of basic mechanic of how you are, you know, just effectively just bag building and trying to utilize your tokens as best as possible. But it has a little bit more direction because coffee roaster is ultimately just a score grabbing game, whereas this has a little bit more of what is the exact purpose I'm trying to accomplish with each of these tokens. The theme helps a lot in this case, at least for me personally. And I think that the way that they've wrapped kind of like a rogue-like repeatable structure in the context of a single session of this game is really clever. Like just the idea that your one session of this game is repeated runs is, I think, such a smart idea. This is probably my favorite Scott Arms game I've played, which, to be fair, at least from my perspective, is not saying a whole lot. I've not had that much love for the Tiny Epic games, and the less said about Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea, the better. But that is Warp's Edge. I would recommend it, especially if you have any familiarity with FTL or that style of video game roguelike. I think this is something you'd appreciate in the board game realm.
I got a chance to play Carolus Magnus, though if you're going by the box cover, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was called Carolus Magnus. It's like spelled Carol VS, MAGVS on the box. I'm not sure how the Latin factors in to the way the spelling works, but if you want to look it up on BGG, just look up Carolus Magnus. I have been interested in this game for a long, long time. It had a reputation for being not maybe in the upper echelon of like the great old Euros, but just in the level beneath that. I think it was nominated for a Spiel back in 2000, and it's a remake of a game that's coming out soon called, speaking of games with hard titles to pronounce, Ariantis, which was on one of my most anticipated lists from a few episodes back. And I also know that the guys from So Very Wrong About Games are big fans of it. Carolus Magnus is a elegant, abstract Euro with a very small rule set, which is sort of typical of games of that style of that time. The way it works is that you got something like 15 provinces that look like sort of random jigsaw puzzle pieces. They're arranged in a circle in the center of the board. On each of these provinces, these jigsaw pieces, you're going to randomly place a cube of one of 5 different colors. And each player rolls some dice that depict the 5 colors, and they will get cubes in their supply of those 5 colors. So you've got 5 colored cubes, one on each province on the board, and you've got a little supply of the different colored cubes of your own. You also get a supply of these little towers, and the object of the game is to place all your towers on these pieces on the board. There's also a king piece that is on the board on one of these island provinces, and that is going to determine how the different tiles are evaluated. So on your turn, sort of El Grande style, you're going to first select one of 5 discs you have that are numbered 1 to 5, and that is going to determine the turn order and also going to determine how far you can move the king. So in turn order, you're going to select one of these discs. And then again, like El Grande, if I choose the 3 disc and Kellen's next, he can't choose 3. He has to choose one of his other discs. And we all go around doing that. And then the player with the lower number goes first. And the number that you've picked on your disc will tell you up to how far you can move your king around the board. But before you move the king, you place a number of cubes based on the player count, either on the board, so on the little provinces that make up the island that you're trying to fight over, or in your own sort of court area. And the reason you're doing this is because when the king is moved and you evaluate an island to see who controls it, the way to determine who controls it is if you've placed more cubes of a color in your personal court than anyone else, you are considered leading that color, and therefore any cubes on that island score for you. So let me explain. So let's say for my turn, I'm going to place 4 cubes. I place 2 pink cubes in my own personal court, and I place a pink cube on an island that I want to sort of take over. And let's say this is the first turn of the game. Because I have 2 pink cubes in my court and nobody else has any in their court, I am now the leader of the pink army, for lack of a better term. So that means wherever the king goes, because I'm leading pink, any pink cubes on that island count as 1 point for me. And let's say later in the game, I'm still in control of pink, but Kellen has placed blue cubes in his court, and now he's leading blue. Whenever the king moves, any blue cubes are counted now for Kellen, and any pink cubes are counted for me. And that control of a color can shift because, again, on your turn, you're placing cubes either in your court or on the islands to influence the control of the island pieces. So again, going back to the first example, let's say I place 2 pink cubes in my own court, and I place 2 pink cubes on an island that I want to go to. And then the last thing you do on your turn is you actually move the king to a spot that's up to the disc you've placed. So let's say I used a 3 disc. I move the king 2 spaces, because I can move up to 3, to the island where I just placed those pink cubes. I now am leading that island, and whenever the king moves, an island is evaluated, and whoever leads, so be it the active player or any player, they place their tower on that island, and now they are 1 step closer to winning the game. The play would go to the next player, who would again determine whether or not they want to put cubes in their court or on one of the islands. And at the end of your turn, you're going to roll dice to replenish your personal supply. And we just keep going around and around. If the king goes to a place that is controlled by another player, the board state might have changed because players might have placed cubes on a place that somebody controls to sort of like swing control back to them. So islands can be conquered and then reconquered, then conquered back. There's a lot of fighting back and forth. And to that end, the game is very, very, very tactical because you only sort of get an idea of how you can manipulate things when at the end of your turn you roll the dice and you get these randomly colored cubes in your supply. So you might be all about pink, you might be all about yellow, but if you roll these dice and you don't get yellow or you don't get pink, then you have to sort of shift gears. Now, okay, am I going to fight Nealon for another color, or am I going to just try to place the few cubes that I have of the colors I currently control? Is it too late to fight Kellen and try to wrest control of the blue cubes from him? There's a lot of tactical decisions, and your plans have to change on the fly. I really enjoyed it. I know that a complaint of the game is the reason that it's tactical is the random roll of the dice at the end of your turn and trying to determine how to play based on that. And that is, I think, a ding against it in my book. It makes for a fun experience. I mean, you know, it's exciting to roll the dice and see, okay, now how do I play things out? But it can be frustrating if you have some bad rolls in a row. I think I would sort of agree with the common feeling that it is a good but not great old school Euro, but it is a good game for sure. It's one of these games not quite to the level of Carolus or El Grande where, you know, you play it and you're like, this game could be released tomorrow. And actually it's funny because this game will be released quote unquote tomorrow in the reprint of it. I don't know what rules are going to be changed, if any, but it's a solid game. It plays relatively quickly. You know, you get done in about an hour, and you know, there are fun swings where you're fighting somebody over a color or you're trying to figure out how to play things. So yeah, it's a game that I'm happy I got to, and I'm looking forward to the remake.
I think at the very least, like the remake Ariantis will appeal just on a visual level.
Yeah,
like
right.
Comparing the two side by side is sort of like a chalk and cheese situation. Like it's
A what?
Oh, this is one of my favorite English sayings. I love this one.
oh, is chalk and cheese not a
Not
thing
really.
there?
But chalk, like children's chalk
Yeah.
that you write on the ground.
Yep.
Cheese, like you
Yeah,
eat.
exactly.
How do they
Two
connect?
more different things could not exist.
Oh, but they sound similar?
Like
why?
oil and
I
vinegar.
think so. It's yeah, I think that
Or oil and water.
oil and water.
Yeah,
I
but
think
oil
is the
and
idea.
water would come into like contact with each other,
Yeah.
and like cooking or various ways. Chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
Name a hypothetical situation where those might interact with each other.
In a schoolyard. I don't
A
know.
rat murder case.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I didn't realize it was a weird thing. Anyway, they couldn't be more dissimilar. Like, Carolus Magnus has like the most old Euro look to it in terms of just wood and brown pieces, and Ariantis
The dour
is-
guy on the front cover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Ariantis is vibrant, colorful, like a fairy tale fantasy realm. I'm intrigued. I'm very curious to dig into, based on that description, of, like you said, what the changes are, because if they've done something to mitigate some of the more old school feeling mechanics like that die roll, that would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, the game is not bad for them. It's just I can see that it would turn some people off.
Right.
And again, it's relatively fast, so you don't feel like, oh, now I've got to sit here for 2 hours because I rolled some bad dice. It's not anything like that. So that is Carolus Magnus by Leo Colovini. A big thank you to a couple locals who I met who taught me Carolus Magnus, Eric and Cameron. Thanks, guys. Kellen, tell us about Unfathomable.
I used to think that The Wizard Always Wins was the best board game title that has ever happened to planet Earth. And that has, in 2021, lost its spot to Fantasy Flight Games' Unfathomable. It is the number one best board game title. Feel free to submit better board game titles, but you'd be wrong. Unfathomable is a hard one to talk about because of how much history it has for some board gamers, previously known as Battlestar Galactica, but also for newer gamers, how long Battlestar Galactica has been out of print makes Unfathomable an entirely new experience. For veterans, it is Battlestar Galactica set in the Cthulhu mythos, and get this, they replaced the Battlestar Galactica with the SS Atlantica. That is not a Kellen joke. That is literally the boat that you're on, the SS Atlantica. Ha ha, Fantasy Flight. You got me. Unfathomable is a hidden trader game, and it is perhaps one of the best. And by that I mean it is a long, full game. If you're used to playing games like Resistance or Secret Hitler, those are half-hour to 1 hour max experiences. Unfathomable is a 3 or 4 hour experience where you are all desperately trying to survive on a ship that is being boarded by the great Mr. Cthulhu and his friends. I actually don't think Mr. Cthulhu is there. I think it's just his friends, but I don't give a flying about the Cthulhu universe. So, like, there are tentacle monsters and they are boarding the ship. You are dealing with all manner of crisis. You have passengers that need food. You need fuel. The boat is breaking. Rooms are breaking. And then that would make a co-op game. That would make a very good co-op game. Crises has come up. You have to figure out, should I use my food this turn? Should I go deal with the people boarding the ship? But what makes Unfathomable good is that there are hidden traitors among you. There are people who actually would rather side with Mr. Cthulhu, missionaries to him, like people devoted to him. You don't know who is doing what. So the function of the game is you have 2 actions per turn. And I think I'm not going to be the most reliable narrator. Battlestar Galactica has so many expansions, and everyone plays with this module from that one and that module from this one. And again, I don't care. I love Battlestar Galactica. I have a prop from Battlestar Galactica in my house that I spent hundreds of dollars on. I love Battlestar Galactica. But it's actually hard as someone who has played Battlestar Galactica because the rules are just different enough that you can never exactly be right. But this is definitely a streamlining of the game, for sure. You have 2 actions on your turn. Moving is an action. All of the ship spaces have different abilities you can do, and you are basically trying to deal with every manner of problem. At the end of your turn, you will resolve a crisis. You will draw a card from the deck. Everyone has a set of skill cards based on their character, and you will have to all contribute enough cards to solve a crisis, or bad things happen. In many cases, there's graduated amounts of bad things happen. It's like, if you get 8, this happens. If you get 11, this happens. But if you fail, even worse happens. And what's fun, what makes the game so enjoyable or exciting, is that there are, I believe, 5 suits of cards, 5 colors, and every color that is not required for passing that skill check actually actively hurts your total against that skill check. So there are 2 cards randomly put into that skill pass, but then everyone gets to contribute as many cards as they'd like. So what that means is if there's a bunch of cards of an offsuit color in that skill check, someone is with you. And that someone might be Mr. Cthulhu's betrothed. I don't know. Someone is a hidden traitor and they are out to get you, and you are on the hunt to find out who they are. The game completely redoes what happens once you become a revealed traitor, not a Cylon, not a Cylon, not a Cylon. Traitor. You have more agency in this game. I know in Battlestar Galactica you'd be sort of sentenced to a resurrection ship to do less stuff. Here you've got more that you're able to do. I had a fantastic game of Unfathomable with a group of very experienced Battlestar Galactica players and some people who were making fun of the host about halfway through the game, saying, "This isn't a complicated game, Brandon," because, you know, the rules teach does take at least 30 minutes with a group of casuals. We played a 6-player game. I was one of the hidden traitors, along with the player who was the captain of the ship, and it could not have gone better. It could not have gone better for me in this game. I was able to outwit friend of the podcast, Brandon. The ship was burning, 4 out of 6 locations needed for the game to end, and it was pretty clear that the captain was bad. It was pretty clear that things were not going well. And so on my turn, it was so obvious that all I had to do was start healing the ship, fixing the ship, and instead I was like, guys, I just realized my special power is I can look at anyone's loyalty cards and just see them for free. And everyone's like, oh my God, like we have to do it right now. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. We have to do it right now. And so I looked at the captain's cards and I'm like, oh my God, she loves Cthulhu, you know, and everyone's like, throw her in the brig. And I'm like, oh, throw her in the brig. And then it's Brandon's turn. And I'm in the sick bay. And when you're in the sick bay, you don't have as many cards, which is terrible. So I said, Brandon, you got to use one of your actions. Get me out of sickbay. Get me out of sickbay so I can get all my cards on my next turn. Boom. Next turn, the next crisis is literally, it does 2 damage to the ship. I contribute like 7 negative cards to it, and there's just no way they can overcome it. Game ends. Voila, I reveal and win my very first game of Unfathomable. I am ecstatic that this is back in the marketplace. I think that Battlestar Galactica should not have ever gone out of print. Obviously, it did go out of print, so say we all. People playing Nemesis are just inane. They should be playing Unfathomable. It is great. It is still too long. What questions do you guys have about Unfathomable?
You just answered the question I was going to bring up. So it's too long. Is it any shorter? Is there any streamlining done to it?
Yes. There is streamlining done, but again, it's hard because they do add in some stuff from expansion modules.
I see. From
the Battlestar Galactica game. I would say that it is streamlined, but I would not expect the playtime to reduce more than 25% at like a high count. It is not like the 2-hour version of Battlestar Galactica. It's like very much like best of Battlestar Galactica at probably 80% of the length.
How long did your game go?
It was over 2 hours for sure after teaching, and probably 3. And again, you have to get 12 water units. And again, this is one of the most head scratching, like the theme of Battlestar Galactica, it literally mirrors the first episode where like you're trying to get to like warp speed or light speed and then you teleport away. And like it's like a very clear part of the show. In this, like you go like 8 spaces on the water track, and then the captain moves 2 to 4 water spaces, and then you go back down on the water track, and then you have to go back up. It makes like literally no thematic sense. Anyway, they also have busted out those tracks into that water distance track and then a ritual track. So you don't actually clear all the bad guys when you get up on the water track. You have to use a separate track. So there's some strategic stuff about would we rather remove that track or this track that I think is cool and clever. Like, I think we would love to play a game of Unfathomable together. It's still an hour too long for me to enthusiastically purchase Unfathomable, put it on my shelf, and like play it all the time. But I think at 1 hour less, it would 1,000,000% be in my top 50 board games of all time.
That was the reason. I know that you were never like that keen in it, but like Mark and I like gravitated to stuff like The Thing, Outpost of 31, like because it kind of captured a lot of what, at least personally, that I liked about that game in a shorter runtime. But I will say that they also lose a lot by the wayside. Like it is a much lesser game by comparison. Like it only captures the broadest feel of the genre.
That's been my rub against that the whole time, is like, I don't feel like the strategic depth exists in the thing. I feel like it's sort of scent of the strategic depth of Unfathomable, where it's like in the vein of, certainly, like with the skill checks and stuff, but it isn't. I really like this game because even as a trader, there are a lot of options for good guys to be like, do we want fuel? Like I have this item that does this thing. It's not the most advantageous thing for us to do right now, but it's better for my action economy.
Right.
There's real strategic decisions, even on just a straight co-op level, that when you layer in, who might be the bad guy, it really is a fantastic experience. And if you're looking for something like that, like Unfathomable, I'm excited it's in print.
Yeah.
There is a lot to love. Another change worth highlighting is that in the original game, some of the roles were the only people that could fight the bad guys off the ship. This game does away with that. Everybody is fighting the whole time. It is an improvement. Thematically, for me, it's a step backward, but that's just because I don't know who cares about Cthulhu. The price point, this is pretty expensive. Retail, I think it was $80 to pick it up. There are cool minis. There is cool art. I may pick this up. I may. I don't know. Maybe. That is Unfathomable by Fantasy Flight Games. Very happy to see this one back in print.
Before we move on to the featured topic, a heads up that next week we will be at PAX Unplugged. And if you're interested in seeing us and maybe playing games with us or with other BGB listeners, you can go to our Discord channel at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. And we have a channel now dedicated to PAX Unplugged. It is appropriately enough titled PAX Unplugged. So go in there and we'll be scheduling times to meet up, to play games. We are also going to be on the stage with Shut Up and Sit Down on Saturday at 4:30. So catch us there as well. Okay, so now let's get into the feature topic, which is a look back at episode 36, Your Unfulfilled Potential, to see whether or not we fulfilled that potential. So let's just get right into it. We're going to take it in the order that we listed the games on the episode. So I'll start off with Fog of Love. This was a game that I had not played. I was looking forward to playing. I still have not played Fog of Love, and at this point, I don't know how much I want to. I was charmed by the sort of novel aspect of it, where it's sort of a relationship simulator, I guess, is the idea. I was a little afraid that it was like too role-playing-y, and I think it probably is. And Neil, you've played?
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. Like, it's much more of like a role-playing game than I had anticipated as well. I bounced off this very, very, very quickly. Very much not up my alley. But I will say this. I would have loved to have seen you and Kellen play this with each other.
Well, maybe we'll do that one day at a convention or something. But for right now, I would drop Fog of Love off my list of games I'm eager to play.
It is like this hard barrier to figure out where no gatekeeping, every no gatekeeping sentence that starts with no gatekeeping, is going to be fun. It's like Fog of Love is like an RPG experience for two that like defies almost all conventional board. Like, is there a game on any of our top 50s that even is in the ballpark of that? And I think the answer is no. Maybe there is. It's just like, it's hard to even figure out how to classify that or how to talk about that in the context of like what we like or normally do. And then, if Fog of Love, then Dungeons and Dragons, and then it's like, is this the same thing? Maybe it is, but glad that it's had so much success for being a unique and different type of product. And I think the theme is super cool. So good on them.
Kellen, you're up next.
Spirit Island is an amazing co-op game. Perhaps one of the best. A heavy co-op game, which I think part of the success of Spirit Island is that it is sort of translating a complex, heavier Euro game experience. And again, it's not a Euro game. I understand that. Experience across the lines to a co-op. It's like there are so many co-op games in the pandemic weight class and then the lower than pandemic weight class that Spirit Island really stands apart in a way that I think it is streamlined but still heavy. I enjoyed very much I believe I've played it twice now, 2 plays of Spirit Island. I have virtually no interest in ever playing Spirit Island again. I would say approaching 0, or we have already landed at 0 in my interest.
We've gone past 0.
Yes, we. How do you go past landing the plane?
Sure.
Mark, for whatever reason, me, myself, and I, and again, like no insults, no gatekeeping. I would rather sit at a table and like talk to my friends than cooperate in a game, or maybe play with Play-Doh.
Neelan?
Yeah, my pick was Dungeon Petz, which was, I think, notable at the time for being a major Vlaada Chvátil game that I just hadn't played yet. And I have now since played this once in person and a couple of times in BGA. I like it. It's definitely not in like my upper echelons of Chvátil games at all. I think it's just a little bit too gritty in a way that almost all of his games are, but in a way that just wasn't like satisfying to me. Like there is
theme or like
mechanically,
specifically mechanically great.
Yeah. It's one of those
Which
games
means
that
what?
Every time I sort of come back to it, like I've just slightly forgotten like a lot of like the little implications, like how feeding works, how each of the statuses on each of your pets work, because you're supposed to be satisfying these conditions and they each have slightly different rules to them. And it's a game I just feel myself constantly bringing up the rule book for to like remind myself how all of the little subsystems work.
How do you feel like it translates the premise of like raising Pokemon is essentially baked into it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would scratch that itch at all because the pets typically just amount to a quota of needs. Like they're not offering like a cool ability or anything that's like unique about them. It's just how are you keeping them satisfied in terms of what they eat and that sort of thing. It's a lot more like having like a fleet of Tamagotchis really than like Pokemon, I would say.
Yeah. No, I've played it. I think
right.
any game that has you actually dealing with poop, I just will
Sure, bounce off of, yeah.
return to.
Yeah, I think that this could actually benefit from being slightly more fun-themed, like visually. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not one that I've really ever gotten into.
All right, I'm 0 for 2 because my next game up was Mini Rails, which I have not played, but Mini Rails would stay on the list of games I'm interested in playing. We all played Mini Express, which is from, I think, the same designer or publisher, same sort of aesthetic, same sort of idea, and we enjoyed that. So I am still eager to give Mini Rails a go.
Is it a Cube Rails game?
It's in that sort of genre.
I'm now grappling with all of the Cube Rails games and kind of going, I really like them. Like most of them. I like them more than average, but I don't want 10 of them. So how do I deal with that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, they all have like a shared aspect to them so that, you know, that sort of would put you in the mindset where I don't need all of them, but they all have unique flavors. So I would say just find what aspects you like the best. Like, do you like the stock part? Do you like the auction part? Do you like the cutting people off part? What part of the Cube Rail system or Cube Rail games do you like the most? And then you can sort of go from there and find the one that, you know, fits you best.
Is there a Cube Rails enthusiast somewhere who only plays Cube Rails, like the 18xx people?
That's actually an interesting question. I wonder if the Cube Rails niche of board games overlaps more with 18xx or with like Euro or like older Euro players. I don't know. That's an interesting thing to think about. But now let's think about your next game on the list, Kellen.
I am, unlike Mark, who is 0 for 2. I'll just repeat that here. I am 2 for 2. The next game on my list was the wonderful Pax Porfiriana. We should just have a standard PAX disclaimer for PAX-related discussions. If you're not interested in games from do not participate and buy Pax Porfiriana. Pax Porfiriana is my favorite PAX game, and not to spoil upcoming attractions, but is one of my favorite games of all time. Pax Porfiriana is wilder and weirder. It has more role-playing in it than PAX Pamir. It is extremely difficult to explain to people. It feels in many ways like innovation. It is very not approachable. It is hard to teach. I still have not taught Mark and Neelan because it is hard to teach. I have the deluxe version. I think I had the deluxe version back then. I have played the game only one time in person and a few times online. Really a wonderful thematic experience where you are telling a story of... The description for Pax Porfiriana on BGG is make a quick peso and vie for power in Mexico, which is awesome. There are different types of governments that are happening and different ways to win the game based on which government is in power. Really just so much going on and a lot to contend with. I know, Mark, this is something that you are really eager to play. I think we may try to bring this to PAX Unplugged. I don't know, though. I don't know if it's the right for that, but maybe.
Maybe Dice Tower West when you're all staying in my place.
Yeah, so we can play it in private so people don't see us playing a PAX game.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I think that I just have a soft spot for card games that double as much, much, much deeper experiences than you would otherwise get. I don't know what it is. Like, anytime there's a card game that has multi-use, more things going on, like, I am just so keen to pick it up. Like, right now, I really want to play Lagrange. I just haven't. And, like, I think it's literally because it has cool cards in it. I don't know. Pax Porfiriana. Play it. It's good.
You should join the BGB Lagrange tournament that's going to start today. And while I'm on the subject, a big thank you to Mad Rex, who in our tournaments channel runs all the tournaments and maintains them and keeps everything going. So thanks, Mad Rex.
That's the perfect way to learn how to play it. Just
cloned it.
Start right in onto the tournament mode.
My next game also makes me 2 for 2, which is Keyflower. This is a great little game about building a little town where you're moving resources around that is built around this very satisfying worker placement / auction mechanic where you're using your meeples both to like trigger your buildings and to outbid tiles from other players. I love the central mechanic so much. Now, having played Keyflower a few times, again, a mix of in person and online, I still don't love all the aspects of the way that you have to truck resources around your city. This is my biggest issue with Keyflower, and it's a shame because the version of this Key to the City London, which does away with that mechanic, is unsatisfying in other ways, maybe a little bit too simple, but I would love to play the version of Keyflower that just has one less system in it, but still maintains that core strong auction mechanic.
I am 0 for 3, ladies and gentlemen, because I've yet to play Dogs of War. Kellen got me interested in this game. I got my own copy of this game. I've yet to play this game, but this seems like a game that we should play at a convention.
Yeah, I'm shocked that we've not played this together. This is so up our alley as something that we should play.
I've had chances to play this, I'll have you know, over the last couple months, but I'm holding out to play with you guys, so Dogs of War, hopefully off the list soon. I'm still very, very eager to play it. It would still definitely be on my list of games I want to play, but as of yet, it is not played by me.
Mark is 0 for 3. I just wanted to repeat that. And I am coming in at 3 for 3. The game on my list that I was excited to play is Clockwork Wars. Now, I want to be very careful when I talk about Clockwork Wars because the Clockwork Wars fans are going to jump out at me. I did not enjoy Clockwork Wars. Clockwork Wars is a secret deployment game where you're sort of in the style of diplomacy, writing down what your units are doing, and then they do those things, combined with a lot of randomness, special powers, and cards. I thought it was like oil and water. The thing, oil and water, a good phrase. It did not coalesce into something that made sense to me. I can see why people like it. It would be one of those hidden gem, oh my God, it's amazing. Don't pay attention to the furry animals on the cover. You know, this is a serious game for gamers. Clockwork Wars was a huge swing, and I like swings, but a pretty big miss for me. Do you guys remember when we played Clockwork Wars?
I do. I remember being underwhelmed
Yeah.
and being disappointed because I was also very excited about playing it.
Same.
I don't remember all the hidden complexities of the systems, but I just remember sort of feeling really hamstrung by elements that were really, really out of your control. That is Clockwork Wars.
I am also 3 for 3 with my next pick, which is Anachrony. I have only played this once to date in person, but it left a really strong impression on me. This is a game from Mindclash, and they are really good at making medium-heavy Euro games that really, really lean into theme in a strong way, in the sense that you feel like they've designed them primarily around the theme as one of their main core tenets. This is a game where you are repairing a broken civilization with a time travel like loan mechanic where you borrow resources from the future and have to pay them back in a certain point on a future turn. It is just a beautiful thing to behold. A lot of great table presence, awesome little workers that go into exosuits, whether you want to use them inside your base or outside your base. It's neat. I like this a lot, enough so that I sort of went ahead and bought the Infinity box of the game, which is a obnoxiously large box of Anachrony that I have not yet managed to break out yet, but I'm very excited to.
I am on the board. I'm 1 for 4 as I've played the next game on the list, Lisboa by Vital Lacerda. I had a little bit of a run there where I played Lacerda games that didn't really excite me too much, But I'm happy to report Lisboa is a game that I enjoyed quite a bit. It is a much more, in my view, sort of elegant Lacerda, where things sort of make sense and you're not trying to, as Kellen might say, figure out a Sudoku puzzle for every action you're doing. Things just sort of go from one to the other. There is still a lot of clockwork to it where one thing clicks to another, but it's much more, at least to my mind, intuitive. It's a great production. I really, really enjoy Lisboa a lot. So, Lisboa.
My first miss, the Three Kingdoms Redux. Okay, Three Kingdoms Redux is a 3-player only, like sub 3-hour war game-esque experience that I just know the three of us will love. Literally, I think it's been the sort of like B choice for us for game night since we had it on this list. Like, we're like, well, we could do Three Kingdoms Redux finally, and we just never, for whatever reason, do it. I think the concern around the game that I have seen is like limited replayability, but I don't know anything about that, so I'm just gossiping live on the air about Three Kingdoms Redux. This looks amazing. Mark, have you played this yet?
I have not. I've brought it to your place a couple times.
Like more than a couple times. Yeah,
but no, I have not played it yet.
I really want to.
Same here.
Why hasn't it happened?
I brought it. What am I supposed to do? I brought it. I learned the rules. I mean, I don't know what more I could do to help it happen.
Is it a time thing? You don't have time for us?
Again, I came to your house with the game that I brought to your house to play after having learned the rules. So,
right. But
I feel like Neelan should be getting more flack than I should be.
Oh, okay. I can pivot to Neelan. But to be fair, no one has ever been to your house.
That's true.
You still, as you know, we're such good friends, air quotes, and friends, never been invited to your house. Actually, I think there was one time we were invited, like one time.
Right.
Didn't you have like a house party like 6 months ago?
Something like that. Sounds right. That you didn't go to. Yeah, I remember you definitely
wanted to
an invitation.
Turn down, yes, all invitations from you socially.
My next game, unfortunately, also makes me 3 for 4. This is Sid Meier's Civilization, the board game, which is very aptly timed considering we spoke about Clash of Cultures last week. This is still a game, and now more so than ever, a Civilization board game that I would love to play. Very much in the big, this is your whole afternoon type of experience. And it'll be pretty interesting to compare them side by side to Clash of Cultures. The most embarrassing thing about this is this was kindly sent to me by a listener, by Buffer in the Discord, thank you very much, a while ago, and I have not to date played it. I'm very, very sorry.
Shame.
But know that I am now more motivated than ever to play it in 2022. So that will happen.
He's saying that, but I see he's crossing his fingers. You can't see it on screen because of the podcast, but he's
behind my back. Excited for this one.
All right, look who's coming up. I'm now 2 for 5, and it's another Lacerda game, The Gallerist. And this was another hit. I really, really enjoyed The Gallerist. It feels a lot like Lisboa to me in its like elegance, which is a hard thing to talk about when you're talking about Lacerda games, but things just made sense. I really like the theme of running an art gallery. It's novel, interesting. Another Lacerda that I really, really enjoy. So 2 for 5.
Probably the Lacerda I most want to play, actually, The Gallerist.
Yeah. Escape Plan is like a Lacerda that whenever I think about playing it feels like a chore. But Lisboa and Gallerist are two Lacerdas that I am excited to play pretty much anytime.
All right. I am 5 for 6 with the Voyage. No.
4 for 5.
Oh my God. Does the math matter? I'm winning.
I'm trying to save you from yourself.
I am 4 for 5 with the Voyages of Marco Polo. This one is great. This is a dice placement game, dice placement Euro game, a terminology that we sunsetted in 199 and are bringing back to the world here in 202. I bought this after playing it. Christina and I really like it. We had many, many good games of BGA of this one. If you're looking for a heavier game that is still approachable enough to play on Board Game Arena, I could not recommend Voyages of Marco Polo more highly.
This is such a weird one for me because I loved this game, but with Marco Polo 2 coming out, for some reason, playing that game soured me on this game. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing.
I feel the same way, Mark, actually, which is...
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, like I lost a little bit of enthusiasm for it. I don't know what to attribute that to, but I agree with Kellen, though. It's still a really solid game at this weight.
For sure.
It's still one of one of the games of this weight I'd recommend over many others. My next game takes me also 4 for 5. It is Diplomacy, which I think we must have played fairly soon after this episode came out, because that seems like that was a while ago. We all played this together, myself and Mark, for the first time. This is a long-time favorite of Kellen's. That game, I think, was a very fine introduction to the idea of what diplomacy is, but did not cement it to me as a game that I loved. I admire so much about what it does so uniquely compared to like any other game experience I've ever had. But I just had some issues with the way that the board activates in that game. That is Diplomacy.
All right. Oh no, it's not me.
No, it's not. Okay,
What?
you're after
Mark.
me.
Mark. Okay,
Neil is
stop
after you.
saying that. I don't care. Stop. Stop telling me how it is. I just know when I feel it's my turn.
You know what? Whatever you feel like, Kelly, just jump in and say your next.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly. That's what I've done for 200 episodes. No one's complained. No one has written those mean reviews about me.
That's true. That's very true. All right. After my hot run, I'm cooling down a little bit. I'm now 2 for 6. I've yet to play 4X, which is a playful title. It's spelled FOR/EX because it's about the foreign exchange market. It's not a 4X game like a Troops on the Map game. It's a game that I am still eager to play. It would still be on this list for me. The only problem is it sort of feels like a hard sell when we're talking about, okay, what games do you guys want to play? This, Troops on the Map game where we're rolling dice and fighting, or this like Euro where you make all those decisions, or a game about foreign exchange. Like, it feels like a hard sell. The box cover, which I think is art by Cole Worley, if I'm not mistaken, is sort of drab. The writing on the back of the box, which is like, wait, why are you playing this game? Like, you do realize it's about foreign exchange. It's sort of tongue-in-cheek. It feels very Hollenspiel, who's the publisher of it. A game that I definitely still want to play, but trying to get the momentum to get it going. So for me, the next up is 4X.
My 5 for 6 is Project Elite. Project Elite is a real-time dice rolling game that is a co-op. I was enamored by this off the back of Tom Vassel's unabashed love for it. I kickstarted it. I spent hundreds of dollars, which is terrible to say. It is sitting in shrink in my closet. I am trying to move on from it. If you live local to LA and would like to purchase Project Elite and an expansion, please let me know. I would love to sell it to you. Project Elite.
You didn't like our plays of it?
I liked it.
Not enough to keep it.
Yeah, again, it's the Play-Doh thing.
Yeah, rather play Play-Doh.
Well, yeah, it's like you make a little dinosaur and then I make a cooler looking dinosaur out
sure.
of Play-Doh.
Yeah, that sounds more fun.
Our hands, take a half hour to wash it off, but again, we're just enjoying each other's company because that's what one does when we're co-oping.
My next game takes me 4 for 6. This is War of the Ring 2nd Edition, which I have not played. I am fairly confident that I'm going to love this. Daniel, our good friend, longtime Sunshine in the Discord, has been begging me to play this with him, and I would love to. I would love to take him up on that, but I know that this is a whole day's worth of gaming, and I just have to find the time to make that work.
I remain so skeptical. Like, what is an example of an IP-based board game that we love? Because it's like a long thematic 2-player experience. Like,
Battlestar Galactica?
I don't even think Battlestar Galactica, and again, I own the prop, right? Unfathomable that I would own that prop. But I don't think that the game, like, I would be willing to move on from it, and I don't think Unfathomable lost 5%. Right. Like, the people who are like, I have to own everything Marvel, like, I have a Zombicide Kickstarter that you're going to, unfortunately, have to now pay for. But it's like, I don't believe in big IP. How about that?
I'm largely with you. Like, I just know that like people sing the praises of this as a game that is not divorced from the theme.
In the same context of I love J.R. Tolkien,
totally.
And I have read the book 70 times.
And I think the thing is, like, what's fair is that, like, that is me. Like, I have the affinity for the theme, and I'm very curious to see what it does mechanically to work in that regard. Because, yeah, it wouldn't be enough if this was, hey, just a Lord of the Rings game. There are many of those I haven't played and have no desire to play.
Lord of the Rings Risk.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings Stratego. Lord of the Rings
Monopoly?
I was thinking of like something like an easy bake oven.
Lord of the Rings Play-Doh.
What's that bread that they eat? Lambus bread, isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
You can make that in your easy bake oven.
They make that in Lord of the Rings? How do you know a bread that they make in Lord of the Rings?
Because it's a bread that's wrapped in like leaves or something. That always struck me as something
the elven
interesting.
bread.
Is it the elven
Yeah,
bread?
only-
Duh, did you not see the extended
how come
edition?
you know it's a bread?
And the
Oh,
special
elven
powers
bread. Oh,
the
wait,
bread
wait,
gives
elven
you?
bread?
Only one bite is enough to sustain a grown man.
All right, let's move on.
Unless you're Sam.
Exactly. In which
Thanks
case you
to
ate 2 loaves.
Thanks to longtime friend and longtime listener, I am now 3 for 7 as I've played Roads and Boats with Marnie. Roads and Boats is a big splatter game that is like very splatterific because it's crazy. You're trying to get resources to make coins to build a wonder wall while geese are running around, and I think you have to trade in geese for science, something like that. I've only played the one time, but I would be very interested to play it again. It wasn't a huge hit for me, but it felt like as close to a sandbox game that I'd like as I can get. I'm not really one for sandboxy games, but this was interesting enough and had enough sort of, for lack of a better term, tech trees that I was interested in pursuing, and had like really mean edges that I was interested in trying out, that I wouldn't mind giving Roads and Boats another run.
Are all the roads you have to walk winding?
And all the, God,
Paths that lead
all the
us
lights
there are lights.
that led us there were blinding. Yeah. I've seen Oasis in concert a number of times. Did I ever tell you guys?
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did they play Wonderwall at the beginning and at the end of the
That's
concert? Because it's
right. It
the
was
only
cool.
thing people...
Wonderwall on loop. So that is Roads and Boats.
I am no longer counting, though. I will count at the end because I know I have won this. Spoiler alert. Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. I still have not played, but it has been re-released.
Nope.
Damn it. Oh, we have 4 more of these? Hell, this is too long. Tammany Hall. El Grande, but set in New York. I unfortunately have not played Tammany Hall, but I have stickered Tammany Hall, which was a 2-hour activity, so it's almost like I almost played Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall, have not played.
That's funny because that's very similar to my story of Fury of Dracula, where I opened the game, learned the rules, sleeved all of the cards, and then never played it and sold it to someone else. I had designs on playing this for the longest time, and I think I just gradually got wind of the idea that it didn't really hold up, and just let it go. That was Fury of Dracula.
Let's continue the not played games with mine. I'm now 3 for 8. I've not played 1880 China. I think at the time, one of the reasons I hadn't played it is because it's very, very hard to get. I have gotten it, but yet to play it. It is as the title might tell you, an 18xx game. It's got this weird aspect to it, if my memory serves, where midway through the game, the Chinese government nationalizes the railroads, and there's some interesting twist in the middle, but I've not played it, have it, but yet to play 1880 China.
Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. I have not played the old version that I have on my shelf. I have not played the new version that I have yet to acquire, which doesn't have the art from the TV show. I hear really good things, and I have a feeling that I would like this in the vein of Dune, Cosmic Encounter, Wiz War. It's like in this world of fun, fighty, splashy, thematic-y games. Vicious. Spartacus. Let's give it a go.
In a similar vein to Fury of Dracula, not really, but I picked up Arkham Horror, the card game. I did not open it. I still have it in shrink. I've had it in shrink for a very, very long time, but I'm looking to move it because the revised edition just came out, so I'm thinking to replace my in shrink copy with an in shrink copy of that to never play instead. That is Arkham Horror, the card game.
Sounds good. Thanks to Kellen, I'm now 4 for 9. My next game on the list was Crokinole. Finally got to play Kellen's board. I absolutely love it. Crokinole feels a lot like curling, if you're familiar with that. It's where you're trying to get in the center, and if you're not in the center, you're trying to get as close to the center as possible while knocking your opponents out. Dexterity game, probably among the best dexterity games out there. So I'm very, very happy that I got a chance to play Crokinole.
Do you want to buy my Crokinole board? I'm selling.
Is it going to be like the Mark's Biggest Score situation?
No. Actually, it'll be the opposite. I've been prepping you for Mark's Biggest Score, and now I'm going to jack up the price.
Softening me up.
Yeah, these guys are out of business, so it's actually doubled.
Okay.
An Infamous Traffic. I would really love to still play this. This is one of the lesser loved Cole Worley games, but that is not saying much because I think all of his games are super loved. Yeah, eager to give this one a go when I have a chance. I don't know when that chance will ever come.
I'll tell you when it is. Dice Tower West. We'll have a little Hollandspiel night. We'll do Infamous Traffic and we'll do 4X. Boom, boom. 2 off the list. Done. That sounds like an agreement. Neelan, you're up.
My next game is Chaos in the Old World, which I have played. I have played this once on Tabletop Simulator with the fine Board Game Barrage crew.
We play it online?
Yes.
That's what we did, right?
Yes, we definitely did online.
Wow. Memory.
This is a fantastic Eric Lang game, an excellent asymmetric troops in a map game that uses the Warhammer license really, really well. It leans into the Chaos Guards being like bizarre and weird in their own objectives. I think this is great. It gives every faction a unique way to win as well as unique units, and it very much feels like it lays the groundwork for what would come in Cthulhu Wars. Very eager to give this one another play, hopefully in person.
If you want to learn a little bit more about Eric Lang, go back to episode 195, where we did a designer review of Mr. Lang and his games. I'm going to finish off strong, finishing 5 of 10. If I was a baseball player and I was hitting 5 of 10, I would be a multi-millionaire, because that's a great batting average. Great Western Trail by Alexander Pfister. Got around to playing it. Really, really, really enjoyed it a lot. Got a chance to play his follow-up, which takes a lot of the same mechanisms, Maracaibo, and really, really enjoyed that one a lot too. So Great Western Trail is a game where the board is sort of a rondel. You're going around, you're trying to take cattle and ship them to Kansas City, I think. I forget. But it's got an interesting hand management system where the cards you have in hand are the different cattle you have, and you sort of manipulate them on the road, trading the ones in so you have a unique set when you get to Kansas City. Really enjoyed it. It's Great Western Trail.
The last game on my list, which puts me above these idiots, is Dune. We have all played Dune. I have played Dune quite a few times now, just recently, a few weeks back. One of the best board games of all time, and perhaps will be the highest riser in the top 50 list for me, but spoiler. Again, I guess in the context of our thematic experience, I think that I would be fine with Dune without the Dune theme. I think that what it does is it helps offload some of the rules, specifically. Like, because I know the Dune universe, I kind of can intuit what someone's power is, and that takes away some of the complexity of the asymmetry in the game. With that said, I have the opposite of love for the Twilight Imperium theme, which is, what do you call the opposite of love?
Hate.
Oh, hate. I have hatred for that. So the Rex version of that can die in a fire.
The last game on my list is Pandemic Legacy Season 1, and this is actually pretty still high on my list of games I feel like I have to play. Like, it's funny because I feel like the charm of Pandemic Legacy has worn with time, but I'm still very psyched to play it. I just keep telling myself that there's a perfect audience that I know will get through 12 games of this, and that person is not Kellen.
What? Not me? Your best friend?
Yeah. That's Pandemic Legacy. Season 1, 2, and 0.
So we went back and we found out that I was the best at living up to my promises.
I think that's what we figured out.
Am I reading the room?
Yeah, I think that's just math. We just proved that out. So that's going to do it for our episode. Why don't you look back at your lists from 2018 of games you guys wanted to play and tell us if you've had a chance to play them, or tell us about games that you've currently not played that you're interested in playing. You can do that at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord in our podcast channel, where we talk about the current week's episode. You can...
Mark.
Yeah.
These people do this where they like back test, or they like buy 10 stocks or 10 cryptocurrencies, and then they track, over the years, like how they would have performed if they bought in at this time.
Right.
What if mathematically you had purchased all of these games? What if someone bought all the best games of 2021 right now, and then didn't play them, left them sealed, waited 3 years, and then like sold them all? Would they make more money, and they would save time because they could get rid of the that they no longer want to play? Like, I'm just like evaluating this list. It's like there are now games on this list that we're just like, we're done. Like, we don't want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We never had to play, but we saved ourselves some time.
Right.
So is there a way to strategically do this? Buy all the games, save all the games,
sell all the games.
I don't know, sell the how much money, do the math. Why don't you do this, Mark?
Yeah, no, I
think
this is...
I don't understand why you haven't already done this.
Yeah, no, this sounds like a money-making venture
experiment.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
That was totally such a good thought as to interrupt the outro.
Yeah, no, but I would say that we definitely do not want to encourage any listeners to invest their money in games and then do not play them for a couple of years and then sell them in a couple of years. That is not financial advice from Board Game Barrage at all. We are not on the hook for that.
We're not accredited. This is not financial investment.
We're not backed by the FDIC.
Yeah, we have one magician, one huckster. Is that a word? What's the word for like a
I think Shuckster.
used car salesman? Because that's Mark.
Yeah. And then what are you again?
Oh, no,
Businessman.
don't say it.
The mean businessman?
Oh, yeah. I mean, someone did have this for us, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A magician, a mean businessman, and what was it?
Something about grandma, stealing from grandmas or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a word for... I thought it was it's hustler has tones. I thought there was like a...
Yeah, huckster. Yeah,
Huckster.
But I don't know what a huckster is, so I probably wouldn't want to call you it live.
Yeah. But with all that said, we're everywhere you want to find us. We're on all forms of social media. You can find the website at boardgamebarrage.com. You can go to the wiki at boardgamebarrage.com/wiki, where you can see all the games that we've talked about, whether we've played them or not. Usually we've played them. A big thank you to Heart Society for our intro and outro song, What's on Your Mind, Kid? And until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
But now let's think about your next game on the list, Kellen.
Oh, sorry. Again, I thought it was Nealon.
You're
I
always
really
not-
did.
you're always
I
not-
was like, wow, Nealon looks really dumb right now.
Yeah.
He's not talking. The Mark may be 1 for 4, but I am 4 for 4.
Damn it.
With the Voyages of Marco Polo. This is a dice...
That's the wrong game, Kellen.
Oh, no? Oh, it's Three Kingdoms Redux?
Yeah.
Damn it. I'm not 4 for 4. Damn it. Could I switch the order?
No.
It'll be funnier if we do. All right.